The problem here is Joe Biden is mentally deficient. You don't have to be 81 to have these kind of breakdowns in your brain. Let's get back to Biden here real fast, because the issue of his age now continues to loom after that devastating report last week. Now, first, I want you to see Joe Biden back in 2018. So this is Joe Biden just 6 years ago with a one-on-one interview with Nora O'Donnell. And she raises the question of his age. There's two things to look for here. Exactly what he says in response to whether his age is a legitimate issue, but also look at how quickly he's deteriorated in just 6 years. This was 2018. Watch.
Is age a legitimate issue?
It is a legitimate issue. Sure it is. And I think people are going to judge it. If I were to run, I think they're going to judge me on my vitality. Can I still run up the steps of Air Force Two? Am I still in good shape? Do I have all my faculties? Am I energetic? I think it's totally legitimate for people to ask those questions.
Okay, good, because we are asking those questions. Did you notice how lucid he seemed, how able to speak he was? I mean, that's impressive, actually, for 6 years ago. But boy, look at him now. But let's take this point by point.
Sure it is. And I think people are going to judge it. If I were to run, I think they're going to judge me on my vitality.
Well, judge him on his vitality. Have you seen him lately? Have you seen him barely be able to get up across the stage and not be able to find where to leave the stage? Have you seen him lose his train of thought and fumble for words in mid-sentence during an appearance? Have you ever seen him be able to respond to questions, deal with an interview, or give any remarks without the benefit of cue cards in his hands or a teleprompter? Have you? All right. Let's also take him at his word back in 2018.
Can I still run up the steps of Air Force Two?
Oh, my gosh. Run up the steps. Well, first of all, they're using the little baby steps, aren't they? They don't even let him go on the big steps. Run up. He can barely walk up those steps.
Still in good shape? Do I have all my faculties?
Yeah. Does he have all his faculties? Listen, this is back in 2018 when it was 2 years before Election Day. And he was saying, absolutely, it's a completely fair issue. Well, it's funny because these days, if you dare to raise this question, you're called ageist. You're called, how dare you even raise this question? Look at Robert Hur for specifically raising those issues in the special prosecutor's report, and they're ripping him a new one. Hillary Clinton, in that interview last week with Alex Wagner, she was asked about this as well. Sorry, there's music under this. I think MSNBC decided to make this more dramatic.
X factor in all of this, the thing that we keep seeing in poll after poll after poll is concern about Biden's age. Mm-hmm. Full stop. Mm-hmm. What should he do on this? Is it a matter of sort of like underscoring his boundless energy, mm-hmm. or should he embrace his 8 decades on Earth and the great wisdom he's gained?
I love the propaganda here, where Alex Wagner's question is completely framed with, how can he possibly spin out of this? What's your suggestion? Nowhere on the table was the option of, is he too old? Has he lost it? I mean, should he not be the nominee? Should he step down from the presidency now? Right? Nowhere in there is that even a notion. It's just how should he do it? Should he embrace the 8 decades he's been on the planet? Watch Hillary Clinton's answer, though.
Through all of this, I mean, do you have the above? All of the above. I mean, I talk to people in the White House all the time, and they know it's an issue. But as I like to say, look, it's a legitimate issue. It's a legitimate issue for Trump, who's only 3 years younger, right? So it's an issue. Once you say that, then you have to also talk about what's at stake in the election. And I'm for Joe Biden for re-election on the merits, because I think he's done a really good job.
Yeah, she would think he's done a real good job. By the way, what's with her talk? I've talked to people at the White House all the time. Why is she's a former Secretary of State, a failed presidential candidate, and a grifter who runs a foundation. Why is she on the phone with the White House all the time? That should raise some concerns. And it's important that she pointed out, that Trump's only 3 years younger. Does Trump seem 3 years younger? Or does Trump seem, 13 years younger? Or maybe 20 years younger? Meanwhile, over at MSNBC, they really took up the issue of the age. And I just want to pause here for a minute, because suddenly this whole conversation is about Joe Biden's age. Joe Biden's age, Joe Biden's age. Honestly, it's not his age. It's his competency or lack thereof. That's the problem. I mean, I have no doubt there could very well be an 81-year-old out there who is completely capable of being president of the United States, probably many of them. In fact, in 3 years, we'll see how Donald Trump is doing as an 81-year-old. No, the problem here is Joe Biden is mentally deficient. You don't have to be 81 to have these kind of breakdowns in your brain. But all they want to do is talk about the age, and there's a reason for that. They're trying to make him a sympathetic character, and they're trying to get elderly voters to rally to his side. Okay, that's what's happening here. Watch the MSNBC conversation.
Along with the standardness of I don't recall is the standardness of prosecutors and or litigators being annoyed by it. And part of the peak that you read in it is that peak, right? I mean, he's frustrated and angry that he didn't get more. Yeah. But the other thing, you mentioned this, we should just be clear here, right? Like, age is the central narrative question here that this all revolves around in terms of its political repercussions, the way the news happened today, the questions being asked him by multiple figures there. And in the end, what makes it such a useful political tool for people that want Donald Trump to be elected or want him not to be reelected is that the fact of his age is not something you can rebut. Mm-hmm. You can't tack to, if someone says you're too far left, you can tack to the center. The man is 80 years old.
He rides a bike.
He is the age he is. And so it's a very useful political attack for that reason.
I'm sorry. He rides a bike? It was that, and again, nobody's questioning whether he can stay up on a bike, right? I mean, we all know he can ride a bike. Oh, well, this is awkward. Thanks, Rachel. He can ride a bike. What an embarrassment. Meanwhile, there were 2 points of defense that the liars for the White House and for the Democratic Party used this weekend. The first was to defend against Biden's age, which, again, no one's saying he's too old. We're saying he's too incompetent. There's a difference. But then the other was to lie about the actual merits of the case, the documents, which, again, I want to be clear here. Joe Biden, according to the special prosecutors, stole classified information with national security secrets, stole them from the United States Senate. He did not have the right to have those documents outside of a SCIF in the Capitol. He stole the documents and then held on to them for upwards to 20 years. He misused them, mishandled the stolen documents, and then shared classified top secret information with people who should not have seen it. Okay? That's what the prosecutor found. And the only reason he is not inside a courtroom right now, there's 3 reasons. Number 1, he's president, and you'd have to wait until after he's president to press charges. Number 2, he's too old and feeble and senile, and the prosecutor found that a jury wouldn't convict him. And number 3, he's a Democrat. But they still needed to do damage control. So here we go with Face the Nation.
For those who see this as unequal justice, how do you respond?
Well, I think this week was a really good indication of how the Justice Department acts as independently as it does. We heard earlier that clearly the Biden administration is not happy with the release of the Hur report on the investigation. And if they really had as much power over the Justice Department as former President Trump alleges, that wouldn't have been released. It clearly was. Also, I think ironically, we have to note that one of the 4 charges against former President Trump in D.C. is interference with the Justice Department. He was alleged to have interfered with the Justice Department, try to get them to investigate an election where everyone agreed there was no fraud and it was legitimate.
All right. Now, I just need to point out what just happened there and the very deceitful pivot. This is one of those guys that they put out there who's, this isn't a partisan. This is just a legal expert. But did you see what he did here? We are comparing the classified documents cases. All right, that's your apples to apples comparison. You've got Joe Biden, who as a senator should have never had these classified documents, and as a vice president could never have declassified these documents. He stole them from the Capitol. He should have never taken them with him, and he retained them for years after he was vice president and years after he was a senator, and he only cooperated after Trump was facing criminal charges after the FBI raid in Mar-a-Lago. Right? That's the only reason he cooperated. It's not like he voluntarily said, hey, we've got some documents here. No. The second that Mar-a-Lago raid happened with Donald Trump, I assure you, every single person in Washington, D.C. went into freakout mode. And Biden said, well, oh my God, go through my boxes. As soon as we know what we've got, we got to let people know about it. Right? That's the only reason he cooperated. All right. But what this guy just did, he brought up charges that Jack Smith, the special prosecutor in D.C., has brought related to January 6th. He brought those up in comparison to Biden's document cases. Now, maybe he got confused because, let's face it, the law is being used as a political weapon against Donald Trump so many ways and in so many jurisdictions that it's hard to keep them straight. But if I can do it, so can the guy wearing a tie on Face the Nation who gets paid a lot more money than I do. He can do it too. So that's just deceitful. It's a lie what he did there. What you keep hearing from people over and over again is the difference between the Biden document case and the Donald Trump document case is Biden cooperated fully. That's a lie. He only cooperated after the Mar-a-Lago raid, number one. And number two, that's not the real difference. The difference is Donald Trump was a president and Joe Biden wasn't. He was a senator. He stole those documents. The other big difference is Joe Biden kept these in a torn up cardboard box in his garage. Donald Trump kept his documents in a secure office inside a secure compound at Mar-a-Lago that had constant Secret Service surveillance. So there is a big difference between the two. Joe Biden was sloppier and more deceitful with his classified documents, hundreds of classified documents. Donald Trump was responsible, kept them secure. Oh, and the other big difference, Donald Trump had to deal with an FBI raid with guns drawn and television cameras everywhere at the crack of dawn at Mar-a-Lago. Joe Biden never had to deal with that. I wonder why. Oh, that brings us to the other big difference in the two cases. Joe Biden's a Democrat, and Donald Trump is Donald Trump. But that didn't stop people from defending not just Joe Biden, but then going after the special prosecutor. Watch on MSNBC, where apparently now it's really cool to attack the Justice Department and claim that a special prosecutor is politically motivated.
Well, I will say that there's no doubt in my mind that that this special prosecutor could have written the same report without using these words. Elderly man with a poor memory. I'm like you. I'm a simple country journalist. I can find a lot of different ways to say this.
Yeah, you know what?
Without
I'm a
saying
simple
something
country
like that.
lawyer.
So I love this. You know, there's way to say that without saying it like that. Hold on. Just so you know, the special prosecutor literally had to say something as to why they weren't going to bring charges. They couldn't say, we found that Joe Biden has willfully detained classified materials. He's violated this law, this law, this law, and this law, but we're not going to press charges. Okay, see you later. No, you got to give a reason. And the reason is, well, apparently the truth, which is he is mentally incompetent. And they're angry that the special prosecutor told the truth. Understand what you're seeing play out here. The media just assumes that people with the Justice Department are not going to go after Democrats. They're used to them going after Republicans, and now they're outraged that suddenly one of them hasn't followed the script, right? And so now they're going to go after him personally.
Yeah. John, I'm a simple country lawyer, and I know. What's the headline? What should the headline from this report be? Not indicted.
Not guilty. Right.
Not the evidence to indict him. Yeah. It's not there. And the clear differences, as he wrote, between Trump and Biden. That should be.
And I would have thought, Joe.
Wait, hold on, John. Hold on, John. Do you think that this guy is so naive? Do you think this guy is so stupid? Do you guys think this guy is so clueless that he didn't know by putting words in that Donald Trump would love for him to put in there, that wasn't going to be the headline for the New York Post, that wouldn't be on every. The guy knew. He's a Trumper who knew.
Right.
So why in the world would the Justice Department allow that dicta to be in there? It's gratuitous.
Well,
he's a Trumper. Robert Hur is a Trumper. Now, did you know he was one of the investigators on Robert Mueller's Russian collusion hoax investigation? He's a Trumper. And it's amazing that he was never called a Trumper during this entire investigation, right up until the moment he put out that document. And now suddenly he's a Trumper. And these are the same people who if you dared to criticize James Comey or Christopher Wray or Robert Mueller during the Russian collusion hoax investigation, you were taking our Constitution and putting it in the shredder. You should be imprisoned. How dare you? How dare you undermine the Justice Department? How dare you even consider that a prosecutor in this country, a U.S. attorney, would in any way allow politics to affect his job? Oh, except in this case where it's a Trumper. And let me be clear here. He didn't press charges, and they're still angry. Because you see, from their perspective, they assume that a U.S. attorney sure is going to act politically, but they're going to be on our side. So it's okay, right? But dutifully, Kamala Harris 100% picked up the cue from MSNBC. A lot of people think that the media picks up their cues from the Democrats in power. Oftentimes, more often than not, it goes the other way. It's the people in power who are picking up the cues from the media and learning what they should be saying and what they should be doing. That's how this thing works, as Andrew Breitbart called it, the Democrat media complex. And so the next day, here's Kamala Harris picking up exactly where Morning Joe left off.
So the way that the president's demeanor in that report was characterized could not be more wrong on the facts and clearly politically motivated. So
there you go. The special prosecutor is a liar and a political hack. Now, I just want to understand the logic here for a minute, because Robert Hur said that the evidence showed that Joe Biden stole classified top secret documents over decades, retained them illegally, willfully, and shared them illegally and willfully. And the only reason he's not bringing charges is because he's an old, demented, elderly dude, and a jury wouldn't convict him. He has no memory. He can't even remember when his son died. There's no possible way he can stand trial. Now everyone's pushing back on that and saying, how dare you? How dare you say that? His brain works perfectly. He's got a great memory. He's sharper as it. So if that's the case, are they telling us that, oh, okay, then let's bring this to trial? The only reason we're not pressing charges is because his brain doesn't work anymore. They're saying, oh, his brain works just fine. Okay, then let's take it to court. Let's press charges. Let's put him in the orange jumpsuit. Let's do the perp walk. Obviously, Kamala Harris is out there strutting around and trying to be loyal and daring to push back on the prosecutor because she's trying to show herself as the loyal Democrat who's going to stand by the president of the United States. But behind the scenes, Wall Street Journal, they're going to make sure that the notion is floated out there that Kamala Harris is ready to serve at a moment's notice. She has a capacity to lead. She's ready to go if needed. I could be wrong, but I think that will ensure that Joe Biden will not be impeached by the House of Representatives. All Kamala Harris has to do is show up out there and remind everybody, oh, God, forgot about her. That said, I do think that's where this is headed. I mean, right now, the Democrats have a decision to make. Are we going to continue with Joe Biden right up through November? After poll after poll after poll showing that not only is everyone terrified about Joe Biden being president today, let alone for 5 years from now. And Donald Trump is beating Joe Biden, not just nationally now by 5 points, but in every single battleground state. They have to weigh that possibility with the idea of Kamala Harris, as flawed as she may be and as terrifying as she may be. Kamala Harris could be running against Donald Trump this November as an incumbent, history-making Black female president. And the Democrats have to weigh those two options. What do we have a better chance of winning with? Dilapidated, deteriorating, incapacitated Joe Biden, or, flawed as she may be, history-making Kamala Harris? And I got a hunch they're going to go with her over him sooner rather than later.